Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. I am Jill Trotterman, your host of Feeding the Family. Well, I'd like to say, first of all, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Today is the day before Thanksgiving, so we're going to run a different type of show today. It's a little experimental, and I'm flying solo. Yes, I am. Normally I have guests in the house, which is awfully fun because I get to interview people. And please, always, if you know people who want to come into the studio, please let me know of them. I've got a great lineup ahead for today's show, though, and I've got great guests coming up in the future. Today, I feel I want to talk about mindfulness. Thanksgiving brings up that concept of being mindful, being aware, being in touch with where we are in the world. It gives us pause of all the holidays throughout the whole entire year. This is a non-denominational holiday. No matter where you are in the world, everybody can have a day of giving thanks. After we talk about mindfulness, well, first we're going to talk about some news in the world. Then we're going to talk about mindfulness. And then we're going to do a little talk on elderberries and how to build your immune system during this time of year. We are heading into the winter season, and now is the very, very best time to get your immune system in order. All right, what's going on in the news? Well, let me first tell you about a recipe I wanted to share that has to do with the news. And here it is. Let me know what you guys think about this. We're going to have 1 teaspoon of paraquat, 2 tablespoons chlormequat. I don't think I said that right. Chlormequat, half a cup of atrazine. We've got 1 cup of glyphosate. We're going to do a little sprinkle of some heavy metals. You can choose what are your favorite heavy metals. And then we've got some PFAS on top, just for some fun. And then we're just going to bake this until dead, because this is what our government now wants to allow into our food system. And I'm sorry, this is not a funny situation. It really isn't. We already have over 10,000 chemicals that are in not just our agricultural industry, but also in our cosmetics, our housewares. For instance, these PFAS were developed in the 50s, and those are the things that were on non-stick pans. Think Teflon. So our beloved leader, he wants to reverse some of these things that we've had in an ad, actually some more PFAS, which are known as forever chemicals. And these are really tragic because, folks, these chemicals, there's a reason they're called forever, because they're persistent in our waterways, in our air, and also in the human body. They are found in the umbilical cords of the fetuses and found in newborns. So to me, this is pretty tragic. Why would we want to add more of these chemicals onto our planet? I really can't figure out what the reason could be, except for financial gain. Meanwhile, these things cause cancer. So there's all these pushes with this. I'm sorry, I'm not into the pink ribbon business, because we know what causes cancer. So I would like everybody to call our senators and Congress to fight this. This is really a valid thing to put your time and energy into. Some of the foods that they want to add these to would be broccoli, lettuce, and potatoes. And we know cancer rates are skyrocketing, so let's put a stop to this. You know, the funny thing is that they say that they want to protect endangered species, and I think humans are becoming an endangered species, unfortunately. So right now we have about 264 million acres of croplands are treated with herbicides, according to the Census of Agriculture from the USDA. That's our United States Department of Agriculture. And these have remained pretty consistent. There is a livestock farmer, and he and the Maha people went to Washington to speak to the EPA. Now, I know people get all crazy with the MAGA and the Maha and blah, 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 blah. I'm not into any of that stuff, you guys. Whoever's fighting the good fight for non-toxics, if everybody anyone knows me, I've been talking about this stuff for pretty much my whole life. I'm not into any political party. I just wanted to say that out loud. And I do believe in what the moms across America folks are doing. So that's who I wanted to address. The Moms Across America folks, including Zen Honeycutt, who's the leader of that group, went to speak to the EPA. And they put it out in front of them. And they have all the amazing statistics because they know that these forever chemicals are found in things like milk, eggs, meat, and one of the ingredients would be paraquat. And paraquat is manufactured and also banned in China. So China not only manufactures it, sends it here to America. Thank you very much. And that particular chemical was involved in over 7,000 EPA lawsuits. So these things are not good. Another chemical I mentioned before is atrazine, and atrazine is an endocrine disruptor. The endocrine system is what manages our hormones, our sex hormones. So that's obviously a bad thing. And that's found in our drinking water. And they want to loosen the regulations on drinking water. Again, scratching head. These are diabolical is what I want to say. And the fellow who is part of the Moms Across America group, John Fagan is his name. And he is the CEO of Health Research Institution. And these chemicals, he says, these chemicals stay in the soil for 50 years. Okay, so let's do something about that. One of the best things you can do, guys, is eat organic food. There is no short reason you can't eat organic food. Some will cost more money, but again, when we're faced with the health impacts, I'd say put your money into the food and maybe save in other areas. Of course, I always want to encourage people to garden, grow your own food, get together with your neighbors, and see how you all can support each other. The organization who I really like, they're called the Environmental Working Group. They have, I'm sure everybody knows these, the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So these are some things that we can do to help encourage our children and our families and our grandparents and the mamas and the papa bears out there to eat these healthy foods. Alrighty. Of the 47 fruits and vegetables that were tested, the following 12 fruits and vegetables were found to be the most contaminated with pesticides. So avoid these non-organic ones. Spinach, strawberries, kale collards, grapes, peaches, cherries, nectarines, pears, apples, blackberries, blueberries, and potatoes. So of those, I'd say most of them are fruits, except for the potatoes and then the leafy greens and the spinach, right? The spinach and the kales. And hey, guess what? That's kind of a good thing in a bad kind of way because spinach, kale, collards, those couldn't be easier to grow. In fact, I was packing up my car to come here today, and in my driveway, I've got bricks. I've got kale coming up through my bricks. My kale is my biggest weed problem right now. And soon I will be having some different leafy greens also coming up, which is kind of funny. All right, so let's talk about the 15 clean ones. So you guys, if these are not organic, these are the ones that have the least amount of pesticides. And that would be pineapple, sweet corn, that's fresh or frozen, avocados, papaya. But papaya can also be GMO, so heads up on that. Onions, sweet peas, asparagus, cabbage, watermelon, cauliflower, bananas, mangoes, carrots, mushrooms, and kiwi. You'll probably have to make a list because who's going to remember that? But again, the bottom line is try to do your organics as best you can. But we've got the Environmental Working Group who is looking out for us. So, more fun news in the world. I thought I'd do a little news segment before we get to that mindfulness. So I'm just going to spend a few more minutes, you guys, because these are important things that are happening. Now, being a foodie person, it's great if you want to eat what they say clean. I'm not even a fan of that word, honestly. But we have to be activists because, for obvious reasons, I don't need to explain that. We all need to be active and become educated in that world. Okay, another thing that's happening is large corporations and meat packers are working to dismantle California's Proposition 12 laws, and like that across the country. And these laws are protecting independent farmers, including poultry, pig, and cattle farmers, cattle ranchers. And what's happening right now, there's a proposition, an act. It's called the EATS Act, and they want to repeal this. So basically, Prop 12 and more than a dozen other similar state laws are set. These are common sense animal welfare standards that ensure farmers meet these standards to, have good animal husbandry. And when all the farmers adhere to these standards, it's even across the board. The big corporations want to come in, like they always do, boo-hoo on them, and they want to ruin it for the little guy. And guess what? In this, we all end up as the little guy, right? Because who's eating these foods? The little guys. So from Politico, the Defeats Eat Coalition, I would look them up. These are the people who are trying to defend this Prop 12. So the Defeats Eats Coalition are supporting independent family farmers who are raising crate-free pork. And there is actually a growing demand for these kind of products. So the consumers are pushing out what they want, and then the bad guys are coming in and they're just ruining it for the rest of us. So what you can do is you can go to the Defeats Eats Coalition website. And I did that yesterday, and I signed a petition to my Congress to say that I am supporting these ranchers and farmers. And it doesn't matter if you are a vegan, a vegetarian. We want our animals to be raised healthy for our people who do want to enjoy eating them. And we also want to make it fair so these small farms can continue to exist, because I don't have the statistics in front of me right now, but family farms are on the significant decline. I have statistics. I should have brought that. I have it on my computer, but it's tragically on the decline, and other nations, foreign nations, are buying up our farmland, and individuals are buying up, corporations are buying up our farmland. So this Prop 12 is important because it sets space requirements for breeding pigs, laying hens, and calves. And it prohibits the sale of pork, eggs, and veal when those states don't meet those standards. So again, we're trying to evolve as humans to try to do better. So we want to oppose this defeating of the Prop 12. I hope that makes sense. Now, if I didn't invite everybody, but you can call in myself. If anybody has that, please do. And I will try to take your phone call. Now, another interesting topic in the world is that our children, I'm switching topics now. Now I'm going back to children and nutrition education. And we're going to go away from the ag stuff for just a moment here and get into children's health. That's been a foundation of what I've been working on my whole life. And my kids are grown up right now, but kids today are having a lot of issues, mental health issues, physical issues with obesity and weight issues and diseases and all kinds of stuff. One of the biggest issues I see in kids right now is their addiction to screens, whether it's a tablet, iPhones, iPads, gaming. It's taking over our kids' lives, and there's a big movement right now for people to go back to landlines. I think that's awesome. It's not just about convenience anymore. People can't focus. They are losing language skills. So let me read a little bit what's going on here in the news. We've got about 68% of children under 2 and 59% under 3 are using screens. Oh my gosh. I shouldn't read the news because I'm just shocked by all these stories. I mean, I do, of course, pay attention, but I'm so happy I'm not a parent of a young child right now. I hope to be a grandparent one day. So, screen time statistics reveal how parents use screens as babysitters, educators, and entertainment tools. Of course, we had TV back in the day, and way back, I guess they had radio. But things are really different, and it's that these screens and the TV shows that they're watching, they quickly go from image to image very rapidly, and it overstimulates the child's developing brain. The kids are still developing, not just till they're 23, but the first 5 years of a child's life is so important for language development, fine motor skills, gross motor skills, socialization, interactions with humans, connecting to the outer environment, climbing in their world, and their kids are just plain old not doing that. They have nature deficit disorder. So we'd say 81% of children under 13 have their own devices. So gosh, when you're 13 and you have your own iPhone, and then 59% began using screens by the age of 3. And I think one of the biggest issues right now are teachers. So if these kids are so overstimulated and then they go to school, they don't have their screens, they're acting out and throwing temper tantrums, and they're not emotionally regulated. So there was a study out of Children's Hospital of Chicago, and the statistics are kind of bad. I want to use statistics because it makes it real. 49% of parents rely on screens daily, often due to childcare challenges. Their report found that they help manage their responsibilities. And they say, the parents, that it's not just a convenience, but it's a necessity. A necessity. 1 in 4 parents say they've used screens because they couldn't afford child care. Well, what does that even mean? I hope they're not leaving them at the house alone. Maybe they're just working at their computer and they're plugging their kids in. 34% have turned to screens when they couldn't find childcare. Right. Okay, some parents also use screens to help manage behavior. So 28% confess, I'm just going to say it like that, to avoid meltdowns or tantrums. And then 3 and 4, which is 71%, use screens to manage their kids' behavior in public. And a third of those say they do that most of the time. So let's say you're in the grocery store and your kid wants something, and then boom, you just give them a cell phone to placate them. But that's not going to really work long term. We need to educate our kids in how to self-soothe, how to say no to your child, how to have your child accept a no, and to set boundaries and standards, and to even let the kids know before you go into the store, and to share with your kids what expectations you have of them. So what's happening to the kids is they're having literal emotional crises because they're, being babysat essentially by the screens, and it's interfering with family time, meal time, and delaying their very important developmental skills. So put a book in their hand, a coloring book, crayons, or have your kids just sit there and look out the window and be bored. Go climb a tree. We really need to encourage our kids to do more of these engaging activities. One thing, I met a fellow, an elder gentleman who was a professor at the University of Santa Cruz, and he gave me a paper. I don't know, I meet people wherever I go, and for some reason, he wrote this paper in September of 2025, and he happens to be a professor of sociology and worked in the civil rights and the peace movement. I'm going to give him some credit. Mr. John Brown's Childs, if you're out there, it was a pleasure to meet you. And I actually read his paper he gave me, and one of the things that he said is it's really important nowadays, that we have what he calls elements of trans-communal protocols. And I guess I'm bringing this up right now is because we want to teach our kids how to communicate, and also as adults we need to learn how to communicate as well, because it's kind of dodgy out there and there's so much strife against each other. So what he says, Mr. John says that There are two which have particular potential for today's national politics. First is an emphasis on mutual respect, and second is the concept of what he calls constructive disputing. And it's these two elements, he says, that he proposes to use to help build a more democratic alliance in the United States. And you could use that in your families as well. Anyways, I'm not going to go on with that, but it was such a neat experience. And this fellow was half Native American. He's part of a tribal community, and talked to me about that. And it's always interesting why you meet people. You never know. That's another great reason I didn't have my cell phone when I was at the cafe. I had my bagel, sat down, and I just sat there and I looked around, and he was sitting there and he had an actual newspaper, and I brought that up to him, and so we started to chat. So I'm going to challenge everybody out there. The next time you go out to dinner, a restaurant, a cafe, you're sitting in a movie theater, whatever you're doing and you are by yourself, maybe you're at a court appointment, maybe you have jury duty, sit there, bring a book, look around, talk to the person next to you. Have a challenge of not bringing out your phone out of your purse in that discomfort, so we can teach our kids how to have better self-regulation, better mental health. I was cleaning out some files because it just seemed like the thing to do at this time of year. It was a rainy day, and I came across this really neat little, it's not necessarily an article, it's just a little snippet out of a magazine, and it says, is there enough positivity in your life? Now, this time of year can get people down. There's so much pressure to go be with your family, your friends, and all the parties, and this and that. And some people don't have family around. Hopefully people have friends. That's a definite important thing, especially for dudes, especially older dudes. You need to work on friendships and stuff like that. However, kids, so I'm going to read to you guys two different, actually I'm kind of recording this too, so I'm going to put this up on my screen. So there's two different sections. One are positive emotions and one are negative. I'm going to read the negative ones first. So, and you see if you have these and how you can translate them to positive ones. And if you have kids, write the negative emotions down, write the positive ones down so you can have it on your refrigerator and you can be reminded of these. Okay, so we've got angry, bored, sad, frustrated, afraid, dissatisfied, ashamed, anxious, disgusted, embarrassed, self-hating, lonely, depressed, guilty, hopeless. I'm sure there's 100 more. One thing was interesting. Many years ago, I went to a therapist, and she had all these emotions written down, and some people don't know how broad our emotional landscape is. Some people have a wide palette of emotional expression. I might be put into that category. Some people are like happy, sad, and they operate in two modes. But it's really important that we give our kids names and language to their emotions when they're really little, so you can help them identify what they're feeling. So for instance, if they're in the grocery store and you want to hand them a cell phone, you could say, hey, are you feeling anxious because you want to get outside and you want to go to your soccer game? Or are you feeling embarrassed because you just tripped over that stone? Or are you feeling frustrated because whatever the situation is? And help give them language and tools so they can self-regulate their emotions. Now let's get to the positive ones. And I'm not saying we have to be happy-go-lucky all the time and skip around with our jolly, good-natured self, but the world is a better place when we can at least try to bring our energy up and bring our cosmic vibe up. So some positive emotions would be amused, peaceful, looking forward to something, inspired, joyful, proud, awed, curious, content, grateful, connected, loving towards someone else. I'm going to throw in loving towards yourself, hopeful, energized. Oh, there it is. Kind towards myself. That's probably a really big one for teenagers. that they have self-care for themselves. That's not a selfish thing. That's really important. So anyways, those are the two squares of emotion. So we've got the negatives and the positives. So as adults, find yourself on your way to work. Are you frustrated? You want to pull out your cell phone? Maybe instead smile. Smile at the person out the car window. Wave and see what happens. Maybe you'll meet a fella like John Brown's child, like I did, who had some super cool positive things to share with me about the world and how to navigate. All right. One more thing I wanted to share on the mindfulness positivity is a study, another study. Do you guys want to hear more studies? I don't know if you do, but I'm going to share one. And it talked about mindfulness at the dinner table and how important it is, again, like that language, that we encourage kids to use language so they can do better in life. So there was a study called Do Mindful Eating Intervention Programs Improve Mindful Eating and Nutritional Status in Children? Well, I'm just going to skip to it. Yes. Yes is the answer. So you don't have to read the whole article or the whole study like I did, but this was put out in the Italian Journal of Pediatrics this year in September 2025. And they do say that the WHO has reported that over 390 million children and adolescents and 5 to 19-year-olds, in 2022, were living with obesity. You guys, that's super intense. And they found that when you involve your children in behavior change programs for obesity and just eating healthy in general, really changes the kid. Now, this is not about shaming or guilt or teasing or anything like that. It's really about being mindful and talking to your kids about the ingredients in foods and what foods do for them. Food, we don't want to ever have kids eat food for entertainment purposes. For instance, eat this green food because it's colorful green, like an artificial color, for instance. They put that on packages. New, fun color. Like, who's eating food for a fun color? What's that about? So we want to actually be very frank with our kids. And food is for nourishment and to grow our bodies and for muscle growth. And that's what you want to talk to your kids about, like straight up. You want to have actual language that comes out of your mouth to help your children have these strategies to increase mindful eating, right? And trust me, this is going to be so beneficial for them because kids think there's like 80% of all girls have tried a diet by the time they're 12. And that's really, not okay. I was never a dieter. I think I went on maybe like one diet once in my life and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. It was like, eat grapefruit. That's all you eat. That's just ridiculous. So we don't ever want our children to think that they have to eat like that. I'm not going to go on the Ozempic trail right now. I do want to have somebody come in and talk about Ozempic and children. My last podcast I did mention, right now it's approved for kids 12 and over, but they want to do it 6 and up. And no, we have to give our kids better tools so they can adapt and be healthy, functional kids. See, my approach is the mind, body, soul approach to eating. And that's fun because we're not just mindless eaters or physical beings or spiritual hippies. No, we are a complex unit of all kinds of stuff. So that's why it is important to develop these skills. And let's see what the final thing is, that they did have a subscale called mindless eating and awareness. So I guess parents out there, how often are we mindlessly eating versus mindful eating, right? Those are things we can check in with our kids. If your kids are bored, give them something to do, like fix something, go change a light bulb, clean, go out in the garden, or give them some water. Oftentimes people are thirsty when they think they're hungry. All right, you guys, we are going to take a short break because I'm just rambling on here. Solo Jill flying on feeding the family. And we are streaming live from Santa Cruz Voice, santacruzvoice.com, and I will be right back in a couple of minutes.